What's up, Meta Nerds? This video is all about the E-5 blaster rifle. This blaster was made by BATTLEDROID Armor Workshop, the same manufacturer that brought us the B1s and the MTT. But what's interesting is that it was based off a Blastech prototype. When BATTLEDROID went to work trying to develop a weapon for their new B1s, they simply took this Blastech design and reverse engineered it. They were able to make this blaster more compact and cheaper to produce because it wasn't intended for use with organic beings. Because a droid unit won't experience muscle fatigue, we don't see any front grips or an extendable stock, like we might see on Republic or Imperial blasters. Because the B1 battle droid doesn't have nerve endings and can't experience pain, BATTLEDROID Armor Workshop wasn't worried about this gun getting too hot. They put just enough ventilation into the barrel to make sure that it wouldn't overheat to the point of failure. But if fired for too long, the gun itself could get so hot that it would be difficult for an organic to actually use it. But because they didn't have to worry so much about heat ventilation, they were able to produce the E5 for 100 credits less than the Empire would be able to produce the E11. Let's take a look at the different parts of the gun so we can talk about how this thing worked. This part here that looks like a magazine that would normally carry bullets is actually a power cell, and in the back is the gas cartridge. When the droid pulls the trigger, gas is released and energized by the power cell. This energized gas becomes a plasma, which is quickly accelerated through the barrel and can actually hit things if the plot calls for it. And what's cool is that they had an option to switch out the barrels so that it could fire more like a shotgun. And up top here is something called the waste energy conduit. This is the part that would siphon off extra plasma to make sure that when this thing was rapidly fired, each bolt would have similar size and intensity. And speaking of rapid fire, the E5 had two triggers. The one up top is just for standard semi-automatic fire, and this bottom trigger here could be held down to make the E5 fire continuously until it ran out of gas at about 500 shots. We see the E5 used by B1 battle droids and by the BX Series Droid Commandos. And what's really cool is that in some early animatics for Attack of the Clones, the B2 Super Battle Droid was shown dual-wielding E5s, but the artist later switched these out for wrist rockets and wrist blasters. E5s were used throughout the Clone Wars, and they were even used during the Age of the Empire, specifically under the service of Darth Vader, when he discovers a stockpile of old commando droids and incorporated them, along with their E5 blaster rifles, into his personal army. And we only have one cool behind the scenes fact, was that the E5 blaster rifles used during the filming of the prequels weren't repurposed weapons like those used during the original trilogy, but instead were a dense foam rubber. These guns were all cast and molded, and were much lighter and easier to produce. Well, that's it for the E5 blaster rifle. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button, and be sure to leave a comment down below if I missed any cool facts, or if you have a suggestion for future videos. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at MetaNerdsLore, so you can see us build Star Wars props and cosplays, along with some other cool Star Wars stuff. If you want to help support this channel, check out the description below for our Amazon store and our Patreon. And be sure to subscribe, because we're making videos like this every single day. But more important than all that, remember, never grab an E5 by its barrel, and the Force will be with you, always.